Okay, welcome everyone. James Duffy here. I'm joined by my good friend Matt Steele. And for the next 50 minutes or so, we're going to talk about FAI space modeling. This is not a how-to session. What we're hoping to do is share with you a little bit just about the excitement and the camaraderie and the sense of community that goes along with FAI space modeling. We've both had the good fortune to go to some really fantastic places in Europe and Asia in the past, and we're really excited about the fact that the World Championships will be coming back to the United States for the first time in 31 years next year. Three big things we'd like you to take away from this session. First is that FAI competition is a great deal of fun. It's a tremendous challenge, and it also provides a wealth of stories that become part of this shared community memory. Second, and this is really important, FAI competition can be life-changing for young people. Matt and I can both share stories about how our daughter's participation in FAI space modeling has really formed them into fully functioning adults. And finally, again, the World Championships are coming to the United States next year, and we want you to take part. We would like you to take part as a competitor. We would like you to take part as a volunteer. There will be plenty of work for everyone. Now, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A session over to the right. And one thing I want to encourage you to take note of, you're not going to see a lot of pictures of rockets in these photos. The emphasis that we're putting on this is about the community and the people who take part. So I'll get the slideshow going. Matt, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm just glad that you've kind of dialed in to listen to us. I mean, the big thing is, as James stated, is that we're going to show you a little bit about how you can potentially participate in this activity, and the opportunity in the United States is a real springboard to kind of move forward. But in all honesty, this is some of the most fun that I've had in the hobby of model rocketry over the last 50 years. So feel free, don't be bashful, ask questions. We're happy to answer.
Okay, I'm going to ask Matt real quick. Can you see the slides, Matt? Because I cannot.
I can see the slides, yes.
Wonderful. We'll dip right in.
So this kind of gives you a flavor of what the opening ceremony is. This is like the Olympics of model rocketry, and it runs like the Olympics of model rocketry. I know everybody is getting ready to watch what's going to go on for the Winter Olympics in China next week, but the things that they do for a World Championships are very, very similar. There's almost always a parade. Somebody gets picked to be the flag holder, as you can see in this picture. That's what, Charisse, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and we have team uniforms, and it's a big deal. It's a little bit of pomp and circumstance. So this is really your opportunity to participate in kind of an Olympics sort of venue. And the other thing is at a typical World Championships, there'll be anywhere from 24 to 28 teams that come from across the world. And, the United States a lot of times has the biggest team. In recent years, we've been challenged by the Chinese team that brings a lot. The Russians are always in full force strength when they come. And we have, teams that are, like say, big as the Russians, to the one-person team from the one gentleman from Italy, who is everybody's friend and who has won more individual medals than anybody else. So, I mean, he's an incredible modeler. And it turns out that while he doesn't have teammates, people on the other teams help him. So it's an incredible experience, and it really is a team activity. And that's what makes it so much different than anything else that we see in our activities. So that kind of sets the stage. Next. So the other thing is it's an incredible bonding activity, and this shows the junior team from Poland in 2018, and it really is a life changing, I think, for a number of these kids that go together. My daughters started doing international in 2010, and they have friends all across the world. It's not like the older days. When James and I were growing up, but I mean, so they have Facebook friends from all sorts of places across the world that they keep in touch with. And the other thing is being a team activity, you need everybody on these teams in order to participate. It's not like NAR competition that's sort of individual. This is really important that all the pieces of the puzzle work together. And so it's a fun activity. You can see the smiles on the faces there. You get an idea. Next. So these are my two daughters in, I think it's 2010 in Serbia. A couple of life lessons out of this. So most of the big model rocketry countries are from Eastern Europe. It was pushed big in the Soviet Union, and after the breakup of the Soviet Union, most of the countries in Eastern Europe, for the most part, took this on, partially because this is their space program. So we've had the opportunity to travel to Serbia, Poland, Bulgaria, Ukraine, and a number of others. So Serbia was a rather interesting life lesson for my daughters. This is Cassidy on the left, and this is actually Katie helping put her model up on the tower in the junior scale altitude event. Cassidy didn't place in the event, and quite frankly had some real problems flying this event that were very frustrating. But she will tell you that she had a fun time. The other interesting thing about this opportunity is this field is out in the middle of an agricultural place, and as we were coming out in our car, we saw a family that had been working in the orchard, including like a 3 or 4 year old, and they were going home with their horse and wagon. And I pointed out to my girls that, not everybody in the world lives as luckily and as nice as we do. And I know it's a lesson that stuck with my kids since then. So there's a lot of teaching points when you get involved and you start to see people from other countries. And certainly that's one of the lessons that my girls took away. Next.
Okay, so we've hit on the teamwork thing, and this is a great example of that. This is Slovakia in 2012. That, of course, is Esda's general manager, Bill Stein there. He was the junior team manager that year. And the three young women in this photograph are my daughter, Campbell Duffy. That's Emma Crystal in the middle and Rachel Nowak there on the right. They were our junior S7 scale team that year, and they each built examples of the Little Joe 1A round and flew them successfully. They were the number one team for kids who actually built their own rockets. And we emphasized that to them up front. We knew that they were going to be going up against a bunch of professional rocketeers, and we made sure that they understood that participation was just as important as winning. And this was wildly successful. I'd like to point out that all three of these women by this May will have college degrees. And I think that the experience they've each had participating in this activity has had a profound impact on who they are today. Let's go to another scale slide. This is one of the most exciting things I've ever seen on a rocket field. This was 3 years ago in Poland at the World Championships. The young woman on the left is Charisse Houston. She built a beautiful 1/70th scale Saturn 1B that was clustered, and her first flight did not go well. Apparently there was some problem with ejection gas getting past the engine mount. bottom line is this rocket had to be picked up in pieces off of the field, but not by any adults. When she crashed, all of the junior team leaped in, grabbed all the parts, grabbed Carice, ran back to the team tent, and embarked on one of the most remarkable rebuild activities I've ever seen. All the dads and the managers just stood back out of the way and watched as all this went down. It was really extraordinary to see. Matt, why don't you talk about recovery?
Actually, slide back one slide really quick, because I will start talking about recovery. If you look in the back of this picture, you will see somebody whose name I won't reveal has got their foot up with a bandage on, okay? And that's because when you're doing recovery, you walk a long ways and do a lot of things. Now you can switch, James.
Okay.
So this is Emma Crystal, and this is
Trevor Seabrook there.
Trevor Seabrook from the United Kingdom, working on recovery of models in Romania in 2021. And recovery is a team sport in and of itself. And in order to get these models back, when you're the flyer, you don't chase your own models at the World Championships. That's what the rest of the team is for. They fly in very tightly regimented rounds. There's basically an hour between rounds. You have 2 models for 3 flights, and you're working to, once you get one model flown, you're getting ready for the start of the next round. So the U.S. recovery team takes care of getting back your models, although it really is an international effort, and the teams do help each other quite a bit in order to get models back. We're all model Rocketeers when it's all said and done. And so the barriers of countries and competition comes down, and friendship come up. And the neat thing is Trevor had been at a couple international meets, and Emma has as well. They're great friends, and when they get together and see each other at the World Championships, you know, they have a lot of fun. The other thing is on this particular field, when we went to 2019 and the European Championships, I actually walked a total of 11 miles one day, just recovering models. So this part actually, you know, is fairly physical, but between radios, binoculars, and people with really good eyesight, we often recover models that are 4 or 5 miles downrange and get them back in time. And then the last thing I want to point out too, this is Romania. This is 2021. The model that Emma is holding in her hand is actually Chris Flanagan's helicopter model. And I'll just have you note that it's not fancy in fiberglass. Chris did this all out of paper. So technologies are important in the competition, but they're not the ultimate in competition. What you really need to do is have reliability and fly. And that's what turns out, you know, allows you to build good models, competitive models over time. And so while that's not the highest tech model, and Chris didn't place very well in this particular event, he did win the gold medal in the boost glide event on this same field. And the U.S. recovery team actually recovered his model after 3 maxes of 180 seconds each, and his fly-off model that went for over 5 minutes. So recovery, it's a great way to see the countryside. I will tell you that. And it's amazing. Once again, in Serbia, Emma and I were out on long recovery, and there was a man that came up in his horse cart and was chopping down corn stalks and like that. And of course, in true international spirit, he offered us a drink from his flask. I had no idea what was in it, but we took a drink just to be friendly. So there's some amazing experiences you get when you go out on recovery.
Recovery is also a great way to confuse the hell out of the locals. It's also a great way to destroy a rental car. We've abused some vehicles well beyond the bounds of the rental car agreement. Let me put it that way. So this is Matt Burke out on deep recovery in Ukraine in 2016. And he just needed to get a little bit higher to get a better view a potential target out in the field. So he asked the guys on this construction truck if he could hop up there and get a little bit better look. So while we're on the subject of recovery, there's a couple of great stories. There's a lot of great stories, but a couple in particular. When we were in Serbia in 2010, on the day I flew scale, the juniors flew S3 parachute. And S3 parachute is where the best recovery stories always come from. These models can go many kilometers downrange. And I very reluctantly turned over the keys to my rental car to Kevin Johnson that day to assist with recovery. They managed to dent the roof, flatten the tire, and rip the license plate off of the car. I have no idea how they did that, but we were able to repair the car and return it without any additional charges. They did pull a rocket back that was probably 10 to 12 kilometers away from the range. We did something very similar 3 years ago in Poland with one of Trip Barber's rockets. Dan Harrison made an epic recovery of one of Trip's models that was probably 7 or 8 kilometers away from the field.
So this is the U.S. team for the event that's called S2P, which is really payload or precision payload. This is the FAI version of TARC, the Team America Rocketry Challenge. As we've shown in the U.S., this is an incredibly popular and fun competition to go fly. We will be flying it for the first time as a World Championships event in Texas. We have flown it as a demonstration event at European contests over the last 8-10 years, and it's generated a lot of interest. And so this is both the junior and the senior team that pretty much that flew. And the fun part about this is, so these all have to go 300 meters high, stay up 60 seconds. But different than TARC is you get 3 flights and we don't open the egg capsule until after the end of the 3rd flight. And so there's a real interesting moment of truth. We in Poland, when it was flown as a provisional event, Emma Crystal had some fantastic scores, and everybody knew she would win if, when they opened the egg capsule, the egg was uncracked. So it was a great, this was Ukraine. And there was a great deal of apprehension as she opened the capsule and pulled the egg out. I mean, you can think you can have 3 good scores on the board, but if you don't get the egg back, it's all for naught. The other neat thing about these is these fly on E and F engines. So they're big, loud, and noisy. And because the weight is not necessarily critical, you can see that most of the models are very colorful, and you can have a lot of fun with it. That's Ashley Van Milligan on the left, Steve Crystal with a beautiful model there next to him. Chris Flanagan, his model is the one on the pad. I have a big long orange model, and then that is Allison Van Milligan on the right. This is a really fun event. The Ukrainians and the Brits in particular have gotten into this. The Brits, I think, won this event in Poland with the 4-cluster D, because Ds basically are all that they can get. Big engines are not necessarily a big thing in Europe yet. I mean, have some for their scale models, but not a lot. The Ukrainians turned around and kind of adapted their models to E-motors that they made, and those are very slim and aerodynamic. But the beauty of this is there's a lot of strategies that you can go use that all can be effective. And most of the models are visually interesting, and it's a fun, easy event to fly. I mean, the models do not take a lot of time to prep, and they don't take a lot of time to fly. And like I say, you can show your creative skills on it. So it's a lot of fun. The big tie-in for coming up to Austin is this is an event that a lot of kids are already flying, and it's a good opportunity for those that are participating in TARC to cross over. The requirements between this year's TARC and what the fly-offs are similar but not identical. But most of the tips and techniques that you use for your TARC rocket are directly applicable here. And then what's the last takeaway? And this is one thing that you have to practice with this. The best TARC teams practice. This is the same way in all of these FAI events. Require practice by flying a lot of rockets, but then we like to fly rockets, so that shouldn't be anything but more fun.
Okay, let's talk about the U.S. consulate. You can go anywhere in the world and find a U.S. consulate. So in 2012, Kevin Johnson came and got me and said, hey, we're going into town. Terrell Willard's wife, whose name escapes me right now, I feel terrible. Angela needs some contact lens solution. We're going to go into town and to the Slovakian Walmart and get her some solutions. So the three of us hop in a car and go to the Slovakian equivalent of Walmart. Right next door is the Golden Arches of the U.S. consulate. Kevin and I know exactly what we're talking about through this whole thing. We knew we were going to McDonald's. She genuinely thought we were going to go to a U.S. consulate for some obscure reason. While we were there, I walked over to the McDonald's and ordered 15 hamburgers to bring back to distribute to our juniors. And when I showed up with that bag, I was set upon by a pack of wolves, including a couple of kids who said they were vegetarian up to that point. So it was just one of those interesting little touch points. And I know Matt uses McDonald's as a teaching experience for his kids. Why don't you talk about that a little bit, Matt?
So every foreign country that we go to, I try and make it a point to take my kids to the McDonald's. And part of it is the menus are radically different in most of the countries. We had McShrimp in Poland. We had some sort of pork sandwich, like a McRib without the sauce in Slovakia. And Katie's favorite is they have Magnum chocolate McFlurries in Serbia and in Slovakia as well. But the bigger lesson is they all know what, for example, a Big Mac meal, which is in every country, they all know what it costs. So the opportunity to take them in to a McDonald's and show them what it costs in different countries gives them a very different idea of what cost of living and expenses and everything in. We went in Germany on one of the trips on the way back, and the meal there was almost double what the cost would be in the United States. In Yugoslavia or in Serbia, it was similar. McDonald's is an expensive meal in most of those countries. That's not the cheapest thing you can get, like here in the United States. Those are, a little more upscale and a little more expensive. But the biggest thing I remember is we went to Ukraine and we got a Big Mac meal at the McDonald's in Lviv, and a Big Mac meal and a chocolate and a McFlurry. And the equivalent at that time was we spent $3.33. So it really gives an idea of the cost of living and that as you go from country to country to country, and kind of uses that as a yardstick of where do other countries stack up in relationship to the United States. So that's one of the Steele family traditions, is we will always seek out at least one McDonald's to kind of compare.
So in the last several cycles, we've also made a point to take a small team to the European Championships. And during our trip to Romania in 2019, it seems we were a bit of an afterthought to the organizers, and they had to scramble to find a place for us to stay. They ended up putting us up at a truck stop. And this was our truck stop in Romania a couple of years ago. Now, it's not as bad as it sounds. The second and third floors of this building actually had some very nice, simple European style rooms, and they prepared some wonderful breakfasts and dinners there for us. But we spent the entire week with Jason Isbell's song, "I Don't Want to Die in a Super 8 Motel," on repeat in the vans. And this has become kind of a punchline for many of us who were on that trip. You have experiences that you never could anticipate, but you would never want to replace after they're done. And while staying in a truck stop on its surface sounds horrible, it was actually a lot of fun, and I cherish the memory of this.
The thing, though, that was amazing is this was a brand new building, but the stairs weren't even going up. The last stair before you got to the second and third floors both was a big leap for mankind, as opposed to the standard thing is they kind of made things workmanship is just not what you're used to. The drain in my shower was kind of canted at about 10 degrees off. It just wasn't straight. There was no good reason. It was brand new, but it's not what you see over here. And I think the shower never worked in James's room when it was all said and done. It just kind of leaked. So again, what you take for granted, and the people here were very nice. They worked very hard. I mean, and this was wonderful. The organizers did a good job, and this was not bad. But honestly, it's not U.S. standards, and that's a little bit instructional as well. That said, we all had a good time.
Yeah, had our wives been on this trip with us, I'm sure things would have gone downhill very quickly.
Yeah, that would have been a little bit different.
Now, occasionally we win medals. Matt, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, I was going to say, this is really a thrilling moment when you do well enough to win a medal. Now, the U.S. Doesn't always win medals. We're not the best team in the world by far. You would argue that the Russians and probably the Poles are better. The Chinese have really come up. The Ukrainians are really good, but we do win medals. And when you win a medal on foreign soil, it's very special. This is the junior team that won a medal and getting ready on the medal ceremonies again, just like for the Olympics. There's a medal stand. There's flags that are risen behind, and they play the national anthem. And this is the U.S. team winning a gold medal. So it's a Allison Van Milligan on the left of the U.S. team. Trevor, I'm going to forget his name. What's in the center? James, help me.
I can't. Kevin, chat me and remind us who that is.
And Ashley Van Milligan on the right, then Kevin Johnson in the back, and Katie Steele, the assistant team manager, in the back. And as you can see, you
got to tell the story about Katie getting cropped out of the photo.
Yeah, this is actually a good photo, but there had been a joke that amongst my kids that they wanted to be on the cover of Sport Rocketry, and they ended up a version of this picture got on Sport Rocketry, except that Katie's head was totally obscured except for one eye on the cover. So I think Steve Crystal cropped everything out and sent her own version where she finally made the cover of Sport Rocketry, kind of like Mike Wachowski and Monsters Inc. made the cover of the magazine there. So quite a bit of fun. But you can see that the Chinese on the one side and the Ukrainians on the other side. You can get an example of uniforms and everything like that. And this was a tough competition. So, but again, lots of fun. And, for these kids to win a medal, it's an amazing thing.
Hey, Matt, that young man is Trevor Harrison.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. Okay.
So, this was the one time I won a medal. This was 2004 in Poland. It's me on the left. Tony Reynolds on the right won the gold medal that year. And the gentleman in the middle is Antonio Mazzariccio, the one-man Italian team that Matt referenced a little bit earlier. Tony and I were the entire U.S. senior team that year. Our manager was Ed Pearson, and there was a fairly extensive junior team that year. Tony and I worked very closely developing our Bumper Whack S5 models and basically built parts of each other's model. So for both of us to win gold and silver that year was just an extraordinary experience, and it was one of the high points of my rocketry career. Now, the kicker to this is that Tony and I kind of put the band back together this year for Romania. I helped him plan out and execute the S7 model that he built and flew in where were we, Romania. And he built that model from one of Matt's Argo D4 Javelin kits. And it's one of the most exciting model rocket flights I've ever seen. 3-stage flight of a 3-pound rocket that probably went all of 75 or 100 feet. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, I don't know. I was busy photographing the first stage, and I didn't get to see the rest until
and
the
you will never see any photos or footage of that flight.
So this is the other thing is I was fortunate enough to win a gold medal in Ukraine in 2016. I had won 2 individual bronzes in the U.S. in 1980. So you can do the math about how big the difference was. But to win an individual FAI gold medal is quite an accomplishment, and to win a gold is really means that you are the best rocketeer in the world on that particular event. Two things come to mind. This picture in particular is when they play the national anthem and you're standing up there and you hear the Star Spangled Banner being played on foreign soil. It really, really means something. I mean, it's pretty darn incredible to go do. And the only other thing is you'll see me looking kind of up here. It's because when I would look down and I was looking at Emma Crystal, she was crying. And every time I would look at her, it was like, oh, hell, I'm going to start crying. So I had to look away. But it's truly a pinnacle and the ultimate honor to be able to do this. And as you can tell, I started in 1980. And the chance to actually, win a gold medal is just a spectacular thing. So lots of fun. The other interesting thing about this particular photograph is the Ukrainians actually did a live stream broadcast of the entire meet. And so people back in the United States could see this, even though, and I forget, it was a 10-hour time difference or something like that. But my mom was actually up and watched this live as it went through. And so there was nothing better than be able to share that with the folks back home.
Now, Matt, those medals aren't the coolest thing we've ever brought home from one of these, are they?
No, not really.
So this was Romania this past October. Matt and I got to get up on the medal stand again, but we came back with something a little bit different. I've got the FAI flag there in my hands, just like the Olympics. At the end, they pass the FAI flag off to the organizers of the next championship. And that's what we're here to talk about now. So let's move on and talk about the 2023 FAI World Championships for space models, which will take place July 1st through 8th in the Austin metropolitan area. As a matter of fact, I've got the flag. Let me get back over here. Here's the flag right here. Now they hand this to you. They just hand this to you. There's no bag. There's no box. And it genuinely made me wonder, when the Olympics happen, do they just give them the Olympic flag and they throw it in their backpack? No idea. But there's the flag, and we're going to be very proud to fly that in Texas next year. So we're available to answer questions at this point. Again, what we want to get across is anyone can participate. We're here to talk about how you can participate either as a team member or as a member of the contest staff. In particular, we're interested in junior members participating. Robin Houston is leading the team that is putting the junior team together or recruiting the potential members of the junior team. I hope she's out there listening. The other thing we really want to point out is because of a recent change to FAI rules, there is a unique opportunity here for women to participate, both juniors and seniors. Traditionally, you have a 3-person event team in each event. If one of those persons is a woman, you can expand that team to 4 people. So there's some unique opportunities there. So Matt and I are going to take a look at the Q&A section. Matt, I'm going to look while if you want to add anything to that.
Well, so I mean, the other thing is not only participating on the team, but we're going to have an opportunity to bring the best Rocketeers to the world in Austin, and we're going to need a lot of volunteers. And so, and this is going to be over 4th of July weekend in 2023, so people should have time off, or at least we won't have kids tied up in school, which almost any other time we would. So we're going to be looking for volunteers, and you'll see some announcements coming up in Sport Rocketry, probably at the end of this year, that you'll be able to get in touch with James or me as how we can go, how you can volunteer. There's going to be a lot of needs for different things, timers, helpers, drivers, lots of fun. So it'll be an interesting and fun time. Just walking in the scale room alone is just something that is an incredible sight to see. Literally on the order of 40 plus exquisite scale models that will fly, and getting a chance to look at the detailing and everything close up is worth coming down and helping just for that in particular. James?
So questions are popping up. Let's go to the first one. What can I do as a volunteer on the contest staff? Picture this as a NARCON on steroids, without a sport range. That's a good way to describe it. We're going to need timekeepers. We're going to need altimeter people. We're going to need data entry people. We're going to need people to help maintain the physical plant. There's a wide range of jobs. Timekeepers is absolutely at the top of the list, and we'd very much like you to participate. We're happy to talk about this at any point. The formal recruitment of volunteers will take place immediately after the fly-offs end at NARCON this summer. The reason for that is because we need to build out the team first. We need to know who's flying and who's not flying. So if you are interested in either one, feel free to contact any of us, Matt or myself, or any other team member. We're making lists and we're checking them twice. But the formal recruitment of volunteers will begin in earnest this summer. Okay, another question from Aryan. It came through as a private question, but I'm going to ask. He asks, do you need to be a U.S. citizen to participate on a U.S. team? And the answer to that is no, but it's important that you not have participated on another national team. If you're a U.S. resident and you want to be on the U.S. team, yes, you can be on the U.S. team. Jennifer has asked, can you get us the URL for more information, specifically how the team will be chosen? I've asked for that URL, and hopefully I'll have that information by the end of the call.
So let me take this one, James. So is there a list of countries that will be attending in Texas? The answer is it's too early to know a firm list of countries. We won't really get that process going until probably March of next year, when we ask for the preliminary entry forms. However, James and I have actually been kicking this idea around with the Europeans for the last 4 or 5 years. And so part of what we did is the bid process involves a vote of all the constituent countries. So particularly in 2019, we went over to Romania at the European Championships and laid the groundwork for the event coming back to the United States. and work to try and get enough votes to go do that. I will tell you that Serbia also put in a bid, and usually these things are kind of automatic. One country puts in a bid and it's not disputed, but in this case there was a race, and we did get more votes than the Serbians when it was all said and done. And so a lot of the concerns of the countries, these guys, when they go to a meet in Europe, they almost all drive, take a bus or whatever, but they don't get on an airplane, unlike the thing that we do every damn time that we go. So there was a lot of questions, and also it involves a lot of expense for the teams to come. But in our discussions, the Russians are very enthusiastic, and I will tell you, we've made some really good friends on the Russian team. It's a lot of fun. Didn't quite used to be that way, but the tide has really changed. We think the Ukrainians will come, the Poles will come, the Brits will come. We're hoping we can let the damn Canadians over the border.
The Japanese will certainly be there.
Japanese, we believe the Chinese, Spanish team, Lithuanians, Italy will send their one guy. We're anticipating between 18 and 24 teams to show up when it's all said and done. So we're looking forward to a good representation. Now, let's talk about the other thing that, so coming is hard, but the other thing is that on all those world championships and photos that we showed you, for most of the duration events, we use 10 millimeter motors, rocket motors that were made in Europe that are not available here. And we can't import them. It's prohibitively expensive. So this meet will all be flown with Estes engines and Aerotech engines. And unlike the other events where each country brought their own engines, for the World Championships, we're going to be supplying the engines. We're going to go to Estes and get a big batch made of, and it'll be half a 3.2Ts and half a 4.2Ts for the duration events, and for scale and S2P, you'll actually order events or order engines in advance from a list that we'll have in a catalog. Scale altitude will be B66s and C67s from Estes. So we're going to change.
Important thing, let's emphasize this. These will be the same type of motors you can get from any supplier here in the United States or internationally.
Yeah.
There's no special magic to the motors this year. The half A motors that are on the peg at Hobby Lobby are the same stuff that we're going to be using for the World Championships. We think that's going to be a very open, transparent, and demographic move forward in space modeling.
So that's going to be, and we're working at how we can get the Estes motors and Aerotech motors to the Europeans for them to practice with, and then that's ongoing. But bottom line is unlike the previous World Championships that we've gone to over the last 12 years, you'll be able to practice with the motors that we're gonna fly. So that will that'll make it more fun. It's a little more difficult for our European friends to have to adapt, but we went over and talked to a good number of them, and they understand what's going on. Yeah, they have no clue. It's like, well, can I bring my motors on the airplane? Good God, no. Can I ship them in the mail? No, you can't. And if I bring them here, can I use them? No, you can't. So we've addressed a lot of those issues. We expect that, but I think we'll probably get between 18 and 24 countries to come. It should be fun.
So Guy Gelhausen asks, can you explain the motor size limitations for S7 scale, impulse, and propellant mass for Austin? Are the limitations per motor or per rocket? That's a very detailed question, and it requires a very detailed response. The answer can be found in the FAI sporting code, which can be found on the FAI website. I'll try to get a link up. Guy, I would be happy to answer that and go through that in greater detail with you offline. And that leads to a great question that comes up. Are previous U.S. team members available as mentors for the specific events? Yes, absolutely. On the NAR website, under competition, you will find a section for international competition. And that is linked there is a list of mentors for all of the individual disciplines, all of the individual events of people who are willing to help. For instance, myself, I'm happy to help with scale altitude, scale, and I have some proficiency in the parachute duration event. Matt also has proficiency in the S2P event. And Matt, what else do you do well? You do S5 scale altitude very well.
Streamer.
Streamer. And Chris Flanagan, for instance, is great with rocket, the half A rocket gliders. He won the gold medal this past year. So yes, there are people out there. Reach out to us. We will get you hooked up with the right people, junior or senior.
So let me talk just a little bit about the process for getting on the U.S. team. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to run kind of a qualification for the fly-offs this year, similar to what TARC does for that. And there's a scoreboard set up, and you go out and fly the FAI events under the FAI rules using Estes engines. And there's a publication up there that shows you can fly parachute duration, streamer duration, boost glide, S2P, the TARC, and helicopter duration, and upload your scores up to the national scoreboard. And then we're going to take at least 10 to the fly-offs. We can't do a big number because parachute duration would run us out of timers and time too quick. So we've got kind of a pre-qualification, but you'll be able to go out and fly pretty much every day between now and the cutoff time, which I think is in June, and try your hand to get your best scores that you could get. We're also going to have some FAI meets where you're going to be able to come fly. I'm running the Arizona Cup in Tucson, Arizona, the first weekend in March. So for those people who are in a cold weather state that want to get a jump on it, Tucson is really nice that time of year, and a chance to come down. You will need an FAI license to fly at those meets legally, but you can come fly and practice regardless, or just as an NAR member if you want. But if you want to get an FAI license, what you have to do is go buy an AMA membership, not an NAR, but the airplane guys. They're affiliated with our National Aero Club, which is the NAA, National Aeronautic Association. So you'll buy an AMA membership for $60 or so, and then you'll buy the FAI license actually through the NAA using your AMA number. And I think that's another $50 or so. So it's about $110, $120 in to go get your FAI license, and then you can fly. To fly the FAI meets unofficially, you don't need those. To fly the NAR scoreboard or the NRC scoreboard for the FA fly-offs, don't need that. Don't need it for the fly-offs. You will need it if you get selected for the team. So it's all up to you. We'll run, Mike Nowak is running a Great Lakes Cup at Muskegon in June. We'll run the fly-offs, the North Coast Cup, the weekend prior to NARAM at the NARAM site in Walnut Grove, Missouri. And then we're also going to have a meet probably in Labor Day weekend at the Geneseo, New York site called the Galactic Cup, but it'll give everybody a chance to come practice for those who made the team at NARAM. How we'll select the team is we'll look at the top flyers, and they'll be invited to have spots on the team. Interestingly enough, as James alluded to earlier, because we're allowed to have a female, our intention is to flesh out and have at least one female on every single team that we've got. And we can run into the situation the last time that we went is we actually had two females qualified for the team, and that gave us a chance to add another male back on. So we're a little more advanced than a lot of the countries are for females flying, and that. But the team selection will come out after the fly-offs.
So Matt, something we should clarify. One of the great questions that came up is, does everyone fly every event? And the answer is an emphatic no. In FAI flying, people tend to specialize. The reality is that we could have, theoretically, a 64-member United States team. If we got to that, that would be fantastic. If everybody flew one event, we could have 64 people on the team. So another question has come up. John Eric Thompson asks, I'm curious if this will help local vendors have WSMC motors moving forward for FAI contests here in the U.S. future. We're trying to change the paradigm. The motors for the World Championships next year are the ones on the shelf in your hobby shop today. There's no special motors being used. I need to make that clear. The half A motors, the C motors, the B motors, the Aerotech motors for the S2 and scale products, those are the same motors that you can use at the World Championships. Those are the same motors that everyone will be using at the World Championship next year.
And one other question came up in the thing is, to help out at the World Championships or like that, do you need to be an R member? The answer is emphatically no. If you're interested and you want to come down, we take, volunteers will be fine. We're going to have a lot of things that aren't necessarily require any R membership. So the answer is no. We'd love to have you down there. We're going to need plenty of hands. It's going to be a really fun event. We're working on some things that if they come through, it's going to be spectacular.
So Esther asks, are you going to have a separate classification for female like this year? Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, that's turned out, that's an FAI rule, not just a Rocketry rule. And that was really devised by the FAI to encourage a higher participation of females in the sport. Of course, I'm laughing. Esther and her parents, particularly her mother, have been involved in the FAI events for years and years and years, and her mother ran a world championship. So, but in a lot of the countries, that hasn't been encouraged. And so, this is an effort by the FAI to encourage female participation, and the medals that you win are indistinguishable from the medals that are given out for the overall classifications. So they
are full-blown FAI medals.
Yeah, we went. It was real interesting. I mean, we only had a very small junior team because of school and things like that. We took to Romania. We had all three, because they were girls. We had all three girls win medals. It was a lot of fun. So see, we got about a minute to go.
Any more questions? Who's going to the World Championships?
If I qualify. Otherwise, I'll be out.
I figure we'll find something for you to do, Matt.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, thanks so much. We'll see you at NARAM for the fly-offs this summer, and we will see you at in Texas, in Austin. That's the cool part of Texas, next summer for the World Championships.
Oh, I forgot one thing before you sign off, James.
Okay.
So we forgot that we're probably going to hold the fire meet in October in Austin.
At Firefly Aerospace.
Yeah,
yes,
another. So that's the one meet I forgot. So there'll be opportunities to fly and practice.
Something we should mention, Esther ran the World Championships in Spain in 2008. Her mother did not.
Okay.
Her mother was staff.
Got
Esther
it.
ran the place.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Yes. Women run the world. That's what Beyonce told us.
We're just lucky to be here. Thanks to everybody. Appreciate your interest. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to James and I. You can reach out to me through the North Coast website if you can't find any other links.
And I'm at jduffy@mac.com, JDUFFY@MAC.com. Thanks, guys. Take care.